All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call this meeting to order. Can I get a motion, please, that the agenda for the March 16th, 2021 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Councillor Chenard will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that the minutes of the March 2nd, 2021 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Councillor Wilkinson will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. No public hearings, no delegations. We do have reading as a bylaws. Councillor Chenard will be stepping away due to a conflict of interest, and Councillor Bevan will have to abstain from voting under Section 184 of the Municipal Government Act. So we'll note that in the minutes. Can I get a motion, please, that council give third reading to bylaw number 2251, being the Edson West Area Structure Plan, and including administration's recommendations for amendment based on comments received and final review? Councillor Sorensen will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. We now have the West Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority 2021 operating and capital budgets, and Councillor Chenard will also be abstaining from this discussion due to a potential conflict of interest. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve the West Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority 2021 operating budget? And I will give that to Councillor Wilkinson as she is on that board. And do you want to speak to that, Councillor Wilkinson or Councillor Sorensen or Ms. Bittner?
I think that the work we had was explanatory. Go ahead, CAO.
No, I was just going to say that generally the members of council who are on the board know about the budget and what's happening there. It's just they send it to each municipality to approve. It was a little bit late this year. I think we can probably think COVID might have had something to do with that. So it's just come forward now for approval.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve the West Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority 2021 capital budget? Councillor Sorensen will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If nobody has any questions, I do have a question probably through to Councillor Sorensen, as he was on the board at the time when I was. What is the authority doing with funds that they don't require? I know that they were issuing checks back to municipalities at the end of the year. Has that policy changed, as there was some desire at that time that that money stay within the authority to help fund capital projects? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, that was the last motion, is that any extra funds at the end of the year is retained within the authority. I know last year there was a mess up and it was returned to Hinton, so then it was returned to everyone, but officially this year it's supposed to go back, or supposed to be kept within the authority. So hopefully that will happen.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? I do have another question. How did things look in 2020 for the Waste Management Authority in terms of financials?
Generally good. We had the Edson landfill come back online, so that changed things, increased revenues a little bit for the landfill, and definitely tonnage was down due to COVID, but it was expected and managed appropriately, I think.
All right, thank you. Any other further questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Wilkinson. Your mic is not turned on, Councillor Wilkinson.
with Edson getting back online, of course, it was much less hauled there, and the others were just COVID related. So really, I wouldn't say they were drastic changes at all, just what would naturally happen.
All right, thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Councillor Chenard, you can come back. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve the notice of decision with respect to development permit application number 023-2021 and the lands legally described as noted in the memo? Councillor Bevan will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? This was discussed at committee, so I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve the notice of decision with respect, sorry, just did that one. Can I get a motion, please, that council endorse the 988 crisis line initiative and that administration be directed to send a letter indicating such support to the MP, Federal Minister of Health, the CRTC, and surrounding municipalities? Councillor Curry will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council allocate funding coming from the Alberta Transportation AMWWP grant program to fund the operational costs associated with maintaining the effluent outfall line, and that any unused funds be allocated to the infrastructure reserve? Councillor Byro will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Once again, we had a big discussion on this last week. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve the adjustment for the funding of the 2020 WWTP Performance Assessment Project from grant funding to the Infrastructure Reserve? Councillor Bevan will make that motion. Once again, we talked about this last week. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve the use of $35,000 from the Infrastructure Reserve to fund repairs of Bench Creek in Centennial Park? Councillor Byro will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, Councillor Chenard and then Councillor Wilkinson.
Hi, yes. After it was brought to our attention, I drove back and I looked at the Bench Creek, and I will not be voting in favor. I believe we should leave it alone for the time being, because every time we touch that creek, it costs us a lot of money. So I would leave it alone and wait for a further study of how we can correct it properly.
All right, Councillor Wilkinson.
I also went down and had a look at it after our last council meeting. And I don't know, I think it's very difficult to play around with nature. It is eroding. It isn't, our bandstand is in no danger of being damaged by it. And I think just the erosion itself is going to take out that little sort of peninsula that's out there. And once it does, then it'll be free flowing. So I think just let nature rule in this case.
All right, thank you. Councillor Curry.
Through the chair to admin, I'm assuming Mr. Fisher, I saw you just pop up on there. Can you just explain to me more from an engineer's perspective the change that you have made? This is a substantial change from what you had recommended yesterday or last week. I know that you had gone into it a little bit. This was second option last week. So I would just like an engineer's perspective on why you've said this.
Go ahead, Mr. Fisher.
Yep, sorry, Councillor Curry through the chair. I apologize for the delay there. I couldn't find my unmute button. So the primary change, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Go ahead.
If I can, there we go. More share screen. Apparently I can't share my, there it is. So primarily the change from last time, basically the first thing we had discussed was reinforcing the embankment. So along this edge, we would have installed basically a geofabric containment. So it would have been scour lock boxes. So they would have provided erosion control and still kind of kept the existing characteristic of the bank. The proposed change is basically to backslope that area so we don't have the steep fall or the steep embankment there, and just slope it out. So this is sort of the proposed area that would be affected by that. And it's still quite a ways away from the pavilion. I don't think we've got any risks there with it falling in. And this is sort of in response to most of the regulators preferred that we let nature take its course here if we could, or we're willing to do that. So.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fisher. Councillor Sorensen, if you can just stop sharing your screen so I can see everybody.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the button. Sorry.
All right, no problem.
Having issues here.
Go ahead, Councillor Sorensen.
I will be voting in favor of this motion. I have a fear that that sharp bank being eroded by the river is a safety concern. If a child stands on the edge of that bank, it could slump into the river and take the child with them. So it's a safety issue, and that's why I'm voting in favor of reshaping the slope. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair to Mr. Fisher. If we left this, what's in your opinion, as an engineer, would that peninsula wear down in time and then just be a free flow?
Go ahead, Mr. Fisher.
Yep, through the chair to Councillor Wilkinson, I believe that that's the most likely scenario. I just don't know how long that'll take.
Okay, none of us would. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Byron.
Thanks. Through the chair to council, I'll be voting in favor of this as well. I share Councillor Sorensen's thoughts on this, that I believe this is a safety issue. There's lots of kids that play around there. And I think this is, in my feeling, the most natural way of ensuring that we have safety, as well as not being aggressive with Bench Creek as we have in the past. And if that peninsula erodes away, then that's what it does. That's not particularly my concern, but the safety of the bank right now is my concern.
Great, thank you. Councillor Chenard.
Hi, through the chair to Pat. In the past, whenever we touched Bench Creek, we usually approached it when it was frozen out. So if you were to go ahead and make your repairs, do we have any concerns? My biggest concern is I can understand the safety issue, but experience with Bench Creek, like that's all been filled and stuff. So the ground is very unstable. So trying to make it safe, do you feel we could cause more harm now trying to correct it and actually make it work and then cause more of it to cave in?
Thank you, Councillor Chenard, and I believe there is a permitting process that we have to do it within certain timeframes. Councillor, or go ahead, Mr. Fisher.
Sorry, I kind of jumped in there to respond right away. I apologize. Through the chair, our intention with the slope, changing the slope, isn't to be in the creek bed this time. So in the previous repair, we would have had to have been below the creek bed to install stabilization materials. So it would have required creek bypass and stuff like that. Our intent isn't to do that this time, is to work above the water level and install some landscaping materials to let vegetation establish, basically, without having to go into the creek.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fisher. Councillor Curry and then Councillor Bevan.
Through the chair, I just would like to say thank you to admin. Last week I had asked that you came back with a more feasible option with looking at that number 2, where we dealt with the safety concerns, but also let a little more of nature to happen to give us time to look at this in more detail. So thank you, and I will be supporting this. I appreciate it being brought back with the other option.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Mayor, through the chair. I also looked at that creek, and I watched for many years in that. And I know one of the concerns that some councillors had was that it's going to be downstream going to probably be cutting the bank out. If you look at it now on the east side of that creek by the bank, it's undercutted right now by at least 2 feet in some places, sometimes 3 feet, and the bank's overhanging it. So no matter what we do on this side here, that water comes thundering through there like you wouldn't believe. It's going to wash out the east side of that bank in time too, and it's probably going to wash out that side long before that peninsula is gone, because that is so full of weeds and grass and everything else. It pretty well holds everything together in that. So this is a small problem we got here right now. I just want assurance that we put the $35,000 into it, and we have a really bad rainy season this year where the water comes through there and it washes out, and all of a sudden we're paying $100,000 again. So I hope you guys got a good plan and it stands up to the water that comes down from that creek there. It is a lot.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Bevan. I will be supporting this motion. I don't think this is the right decision. I think we should be fixing this properly. I am very concerned that, as Councillor Bevan spoke about, that we're going to see further problems with this bank, and we're going to end up in a situation just like by the detachment where all of a sudden we're into $1 million project. But I will listen to the engineer's advice, and I think the main concern at this point is the safety concern. I share the concerns that were raised about kids playing in that area at events and that sort of thing, and I would just hate to see that top of that overhang give way and a kid falling into the creek. For that, I will be supporting this, but I do believe, for the record, I think we should be spending the money to do this properly. So on that, I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. We have no information items, no sundry items. We're going to go to council committee reports, and today we will start with Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. That's really got mine. Not too organized. I've had meetings all day. All right, the report for March 16th. I had the committee of the whole meeting on March the 9th. I had an Evergreens meeting on March 10th, and then following in the week after that, I've been working with Paul Butler, our chair. We're hiring a firm to look into a human resource complaint. On March 11th, we had Evergreen's financial meeting where the finances for the year were reported. We also are not doing as well as we had hoped, mainly because many people were reticent to move into the lodge or any seniors residence during COVID. It's just starting to get better now. And on the 15th, we worked all day interviewing people for a new CAO position. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Curry.
I have a short one this week on March 9th. I also had the committee of the whole meeting. And then on March 15th, the CAO recruitment for all day.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bevan.
Even shorter on the 15th, recruitment for a new CAO.
Thank you. Councillor Chouinard.
Well, I did more than Councillor Bevan, so I had the committee of the whole on the 9th, and on the 15th, I was looking forward to all of us joining for the CEO, so that was it. Whoops.
Thank you. Councillor Byer.
Thanks, mine was short as well. On March 9th, I had the committee of the whole meeting, and on March 15th, I had the chief administrative officer interviews as well.
Thank you. Moving on to Deputy Mayor Two Hips Sorensen.
On March 9th, we had committee of the whole meeting. March 10th, I had a Chamber of Commerce meeting. They're obviously being impacted by COVID quite hard. A lot of their fundraiser events for the year have been canceled. The only one they're not sure about yet is Christmas. That's kind of still up in the air. They do, however, have an AGM tomorrow, so we'll hear more then. And March 15th, yesterday, I also was at the CAO interviews, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor Sorensen. Didn't even react to that. Can I get, on my report, I have March 3rd, of course, we had the committee of the whole meeting. On March 10th, mayors across Northern Alberta and forestry communities were on a Zoom call with the Alberta Electric System Operator regarding the tariffs that we have been very concerned about. The AESO is trying to, I guess, level the playing field a bit in terms of who's paying for electrical system upgrades across the province. There are a number of areas in industry across the province where they are shutting down at peak times in order not to pay for peak demand and to pay for some of the upgrades. So they're looking at revamping the tariffs so that they are going to contribute to some of those upgrade costs. Our concern was it was going to be impacting mills in millions of dollars per year on what the proposal that we saw that was brought forward. We were assured during this call that that proposal isn't even being considered, and that they are going to be bringing forward something far more reasonable that will hopefully address the concerns about tariffs, as well as make it sustainable for forestry and other industry that would be impacted by this. They did state, the president of AESO did state that they want to be competitive in the marketplace. They understand that communities need these industries in order to survive, especially in the economic climate that we're in, and that they will be making a further announcement, I believe, later this week. So we will hold them to that, and we shared our concerns, and they certainly understood them. So we'll see what happens with that here later this week. On March the 11th, Mayor Michaels, Mayor Glinsky, and I attended a regional business support network meeting. There were about 40 people there just to give updates on our communities. And we also had a presentation from, let me just find the name here, Dr. David Evans, who is a viral biologist and with the University of Alberta, and just spoke about the COVID virus and the vaccines, and basically whatever vaccine, get it as quickly as you can. They're all safe. They all are effective. And we need to do that in order to protect our communities. And yesterday, a great day with council for CAO interviews, and hopefully we'll have an announcement here soon. So that's my report. We have no financial items. Questions for media and public regarding items from this council meeting?
Your worship, we have no questions from media or public tonight.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bethg. We had no closed meeting session. CEO Bittner, thank you for your hard work and all your input today. We didn't even have to call on you, so thank you very much.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm here to serve you.
All right. Can I get a motion, please, for adjournment? Councillor Chenard will make that motion. Non-debatable. All those in favor? Motion carried. Have a great night, everyone.
Night.